Yeah, there's no question that the smartphone is taking over the photographic world. Believe it or not, I know all you people with your big boy and big girl cameras out there love your big cameras, and I love my big cameras too. But I love my smartphone. And I love this photograph here. It has no business being in this. Oh, gee. Well, there's a photograph of me and my kids. Let's see. What, should I unplug it and plug it back in? Okay. Ugh. Don't anybody breathe. Okay. This has no point being in here either, but I just love it so much. I just had to find a reason to stick it in there. And of course, the ability to share photographs on a smartphone is beyond comprehension for anybody who was serious about photography 10 years ago. I'm the guy up here at the microphone because I have written and/or photographed 9 books. I did a couple books with Anna Quindlen. Anna Quindlen is the Pulitzer Prize-winning author. We did Naked Babies and Siblings together there. And here's just general information, my website, our Facebook page. We have 65,000 Facebook fans, and we post a fan photo of the day. 6 days a week, I have written and recognized over 1,000 fan photos in the last 4 years. And I have to tell you, nothing gives me greater pleasure than finding somebody like you who took a wonderful photograph, and I put it up there and say, this is a gorgeous picture, and the notes I get from people, this is one of the most exciting things that's ever happened to me, that kind of thing. I know there are certain people that photography is it, and it took them a little while to discover it. But anyway, back to the smartphone. Here is an actual conversation from the actual internet, the real internet. He said, smartphone cameras are junk. The lens is made of plastic. No real photographer would ever use this camera. And then she said, oh yeah? Are you saying David Hume Kennerly isn't a real photographer? So I have to digress. David Hume Kennerly was this Pulitzer Prize-winning Vietnam War correspondent who loves his iPhone, and he did a big book about iPhone photographs. And although I've met David Hume Kennerly, he's probably not going to loan you his lawnmower, but he is a heck of a photographer, and he did a whole book of iPhone photographs. So he said, David Hume Kennerly doesn't know diddly. Let's face it, he's 60-something. Who wants a camera built into a phone anyway? Smartphone cameras are worthless. And then she said, yeah, like your brain. I think I've spoken to that woman many times, actually. But I love going through my world, having a phone right here that doesn't give me lower back pain and do more damage to my knees. I absolutely love it. I love going to the beach. I love photographing my children with smartphones. I love finding little details out there in the real world that that grab me for whatever reason, and shoot photographs I'm never going to show to anyone except at Forever Live events. I love photographing the children of friends. I love going to a dinner party and saying, hey, Tony, come over here in the corner. There's a nice light right here. I go click. We go home and say, thanks for a nice dinner. Here's a picture of your kid. Like a couple hours after the event. I love finding these little boy details around our house. I love going out to the chicken coop at Grandma's house and feeding the chickens and having a phone with me when I do it. And when my wife says, Nick, you've got to come into the bathroom. Alexander is practicing his violin in the shower because it sounds so good. That's an actual true photograph. Absolutely. And just little details at the beach. We put up a post on our Facebook page. And said, please send us your smartphone photos. You know, one week it would be send us your flower photos. One it's send us your cute kitten photos. We would get about 300 pictures a week. We said, send us your smartphone photos. We had 2,500 photographs in 24 hours. People are shooting, I mean, the numbers are through the roof. I'm not going to go into it, but it is, every year it is exponentially greater. More pictures have ever been taken by iPhones. The iPhone is the most popular camera in history by far, blah, 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 blah. And look at the pictures people shoot with their smartphones. And they have access to the real world. when real stuff happens, they have a camera there and they can shoot wonderful little details. And when kids, just those little off moments, outside flying kites, who wants to carry a 12-pound Canon with motor drive and 80 to 200 f2.8 lens? Nobody. And all of a sudden, people who have never really had a creative outlet in their world have one, because they have access to the real lives of real people and they have a beautiful little camera at their side. Have you ever tried to go horseback riding on a 3-day horse with Nikons hanging here? Trust me, it's body damaging, trust me. So if you don't get it, if you didn't get it, I love my smartphone, okay? I love my smartphone. I have an iPhone. I'm using iPhone. Most of the pictures in here were taken with iPhones. Let me tell you, the Samsung versions and many of the others take the same photographs. Okay. It is, however, getting difficult to argue with the technology, the quality of the technology. Let me just show you a couple photographs here. I'm just going to zoom in on this one. Okay? I mean, that's pretty darn impressive for a little tiny camera. Okay? My smartphone has more resolution than my first serious digital professional camera, the one I quit shooting film for. I quit shooting film almost 15 years ago. That first Nikon camera I had has less resolution than my iPhone. Nobody ever said, hey, these pictures don't have enough resolution, right? Here's another example. I think this is pretty amazing. Let me just zoom in on this one for you. I love photographing these little details. That's crazy. That's crazy, okay? Now, yes, it has more resolution, but it can't do this. It can't do this. There's our own Judy Gill last night at dinner. You can't put the background out of focus like that. You can't shoot a picture in shockingly low light. For those of you that were there, people were going, oh my gosh, look at the picture he shot with my Samsung mirrorless camera. My kids call it the big boy camera. In really low light, beautiful out of focus background, looks like a professional portrait. It was a casual shot. Here's something else you can't do. Let me zoom in on this. I love this photograph of Teddy, my son. I have several pictures of Teddy in here. I have to tell you, first of all, I told you the other day, 3 sons, but Alexander's 10, Teddy's 7. Teddy loves to be photographed. He loves to cooperate with me and try and make me look good. It is so touching. Alexander, the 10-year-old, couldn't care less. Therefore, he's not in as many pictures you're going to see today. But let me just zoom in. You can't do this. You can't do this with a smartphone. And therefore, I didn't do it with a smartphone. You also will have problems doing this. I'm going to zoom in here. This is ISO 1600. Now there it is with the Samsung camera. It's shockingly dark in that room and Teddy is moving. If I had taken the picture with a smartphone, it would look a lot more like this. That's digital noise. It would start to fall apart. Smartphones don't do well in low light. There are certain things that smartphones don't do. I'm going to share some of those with you today. But they certainly are convenient. If there were no phone in your camera, you would still be carrying it around. Think about that. It's kind of like carrying no camera. So when I go to the neighbor's house to borrow a cup of sugar, literally to the neighbor's house to borrow a cup of sugar, and their doormat is full of pine needles, I just happen to have a camera with me. Or when my boys and I are playing catch and Alexander throws me a ball and he has just written on it, don't play on pavement with this ball because it's going to trash the ball, I stop playing catch for a minute and I go, click, put the phone away and throw the ball back to him. Right? Unpacking Alexander's lunch, he came home. I'm not eating this. We put this on the Facebook page. The hummus haters came out in just multitudes of people saying, right on, Alexander. And when Alexander gets sick on the drive to Grandma's house, we pull over, I stay in the car, he gets out to throw up, and I take a picture of him. Little family moment. And of course, I am smart enough when I go for a canoe ride to put my phone on the shore. Unfortunately, when I swamp the canoe, one man swamping, and you can see it was very windy that day. But anyway, my wife is there with the phone to document me trying to get the canoe out of the pond, unfortunately. My father-in-law died in February, and we were there visiting shortly after, and I got up very early in the morning to go to the bathroom, and down the hallway I could see my mother-in-law sitting out in that room. They'd always had the two of them, and there she is sitting by herself in my underwear. I just went click with my smartphone. She didn't know I shot the picture. And there she is saying goodbye to the relatives, saying goodbye to the boys when we leave. Just these little moments. I'd already packed up my cameras. They're in the car. We're getting ready to go. I have my smartphone with me. And here she is saying goodbye on a different trip to the boys. Cousins brushing teeth. The forced teeth brushing. Food. There was an article in the Wall Street Journal last week that said smartphone photos, about 28% of them are pictures of food. And I can see why. I can see why. They are wonderful food cameras. You happen to be here out to dinner, there's your entree, click. It's a wonderful thing to share. Going through museums, just a sweet, that you can shoot pictures in some situations where you can't use cameras, but you can use a smartphone camera. I know it makes no sense. You're not supposed to shoot pictures in airports with a big camera, but when you pull out your smartphone and click, no security guard stops you. Anyway, walking through airports, Alexander thinking he's really cool with his orange sunglasses, looking like a rock star, and Teddy showing me his muscles in the screen door. Going out for a little snack with the boys after school one day, just casual little moments. Teddy sleeping, sick one day. Mom at Mother's Day. You can see Alexander was really into the whole Mother's Day event. My famous photojournalism professor, Angus McDougall at the University of Missouri, he said, always shoot little sketches. Always have your camera and shoot pictures just for yourself. And he would have loved the smartphone. He said, you need to keep your batteries charged. Shoot those pictures for yourself. So I'm shooting pictures of grass growing in parking lots and little still lives of boys, the accoutrements of boyhood, and a found pair of shoes at a house that we were visiting, stuff at the kids' school, just a flag in the corner, flags, my own foot at the beach, my own footprint walking through the snow. These are photographs that are just for me. I always feel better when I take one of these photographs. It just makes me feel good. Even the stuff in the sink getting ready to go down the garbage disposal. Yep. 4th of July photographs, the view out the airplane, arriving. The ability to share is completely through the roof. The ease with which last night we were at dinner, shooting an overall of the table, airdropping it to each other. The photograph worked its way down the table from iPhone to iPhone. It was unbelievable. That ability, we take it for granted now. We're so lazy and dull, aren't we? But so incredible to be able to share that. This is at a school event, this man with his baby. Quick, I shoot it, and I'm standing there. What's your email address? And I just punch in his email. I send him the photograph. He's got it when he comes home. A friend of mine manages the most luxurious hotel in Minneapolis. They had a big renovation. He hired me to come out and Instagram the big opening party. I posted 200 photographs in about 3 hours, and they were on big screens coming up all over this party. It was wonderful. The musician was there, had flown down from Alaska. I walked up to him and I said, what's your email address? I love giving people pictures like this. I love photographing my neighbor's children and having them just go into the house and the picture's already there and mom says, oh, I can't believe that picture Nick just shot. And you can organize your photographs on your phone. And I gotta say, this is a little video, I'm gonna let this play. But the forever interface, I stand at attention and applaud the designers for what's going on with the interface here. And I know I should be talking over this. I can't see it over here. But the ability to create a slideshow and just show people a slideshow of one of your stories is an amazing way to tell stories about your life and share your photography and share your passion for the world. And the way you can automatically upload all your stuff to the Forever site and on your phone and then go in and just delete whatever you don't want later. All the pictures I shoot on my phone go straight to my Forever account. I go in and delete them later. And I find that I shoot so many photographs of my kids with my phone. Just those little, I was talking about this yesterday, just those little funny little off moments. Just an incredible. I love the timeline feature here. It's so beautiful. This is like looking like a real world-class app at this point. Glenn has been saying that the interface is going to get better and better, and boy, it does continue to get better and better and better. It is so impressive. Really, so you get the idea. All right, now, in order to be a good smartphone photographer, you need to understand certain things about smartphones. And I'm going to get a little technical here. I don't mean to scare anybody away, but here's the deal. Everything you shoot with your smartphone is going to be sharp. And that's not necessarily a good thing, like the picture of Judy. I didn't want the background sharp, right? When you shoot pictures out at a picnic, the background's going to be sharp. Sometimes that's distracting. Like I said before, you can't do this with a smartphone. You can't do that with a smartphone. Now, I did a book several years ago called How to Be Dad. And I shot a photo. I had this memory of my father walking down the street in Fargo, North Dakota at 5 a.m. every day. I could see him coming down the sidewalk from a distance away, and I recreated this photograph and wrote about it for the book. So these are two little actors in our neighborhood, right? So there's me watching my dad come home, but I put me out of focus because I wanted to put make my dad sharp, and I like the drama of that. Well, cut to decades later, here are my boys walking down the sidewalk, getting off the school bus. Everything is sharp. Notice down in the foreground there, the sidewalk is sharp. There's no option to put anything out of focus. Okay? Now here's the difference. Here's the same situation, same photograph. This one is taken with a mirrorless single lens reflex camera. So my big boy camera. Notice the out of focus background, and here it is with a smartphone. Okay? This is the same situation. This one, for your information, is with a medium telephoto lens, and this one is with a smartphone. Now everything is sharp, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. For example, it can certainly be made to work. Arguably, the greatest photographer, there are many people who would say he was the greatest, Ansel Adams. Everything he shot, I'm not sure the guy ever had anything out of focus in any picture he ever shot. Everything is screaming sharp. I'm going to digress 1 second here. Ansel Adams was 4 years old in San Francisco when the earthquake happened. He got knocked down and he broke his nose very severely, landed on his face. And I read a biography of him. For the rest of his life, he was very sensitive about the fact that his nose was crooked, and he was very careful where to point his nose for when he was having his picture taken. So I looked at this photograph and I thought, he has set this up so his nose is pointing at the camera. Well, here's a rare photograph, just a little. There's Ansel's real nose. I love that so much. I love that. But okay, so anyway. But everything this guy shot was sharp. The close-up stuff is sharp. The far-away stuff is sharp. He even founded a group for you techno people about depth of field. The group of photographers he worked with in San Francisco was called F64. F64 means little tiny opening. Everything sharp. Everything sharp. That's what they were all about. They were all about sharp. So, if you can think like Ansel Adams or one of those great photographers who like everything is sharp, that will serve you very well as a smartphone photographer. I mean, look at this photograph. Look at that. It's unbelievable. I could go on and on about Ansel Adams. I don't have time, but he was a wild mountain man and went up at one point went up into the mountains with 10 pieces of film on cameras on mules for 3 days and shot 3 photographs that are considered classics in 3 days. So let's get a little scientific and technical here. Why is everything so sharp with a smartphone camera? And the reason is, it is the lens and the camera are so small. That's about actual size of relative to a penny, the size of everything that's in an iPhone. Okay? So, when things get smaller, stuff gets sharper. Everything becomes sharper and sharper. Don't ask why, trust me, it's like laws of optics stuff. So, the lens is small, and it's a wide-angle lens. it shows the big view. Well, here's the deal. That's a double whammy. There's a ton of depth of field in, and we have two laws of optics going on here. The smaller the lens, the more depth of field. That means the more stuff's going to be sharper. And the wider the lens, the more depth of field. So you've got two big factors making everything sharp, which you're stuck with, but you just got to make it work. Now this is a smartphone photo. Everything's sharp down in the foreground. The trees are as sharp as the grass, and the trees are as sharp as the grass in the foreground. Or I'm walking down the street with my boys coming home from baseball practice. I'm just stuck with the fact that the car is going to be sharp back there, okay? Now, here's the thing. There are advantages. A small camera with a wide-angle lens is the perfect selfie camera. It's the perfect selfie camera. It's going to be sharp, and I want you to know I am bipartisan. It's the perfect selfie camera because if you're a little bit tall, you can hold that camera up and get a lot of people. I mean, the camera's just right there, and I've got a bunch of people in the picture with me. It's a wide-angle lens, and everything's sharp. That's cool. Now, wide-angle lenses are great for showing overall scenes. So if you can think in terms of simple, dramatic storytelling overall scenes, that will serve you very well. Last week I was in the San Juan Islands with my photographer friends, and we just ate and drank and photographed each other. But this is with an iPhone, right? Or if I take my boys to get their hair cut and they're waiting for their turn, they're watching sports on TV with the barber in the old-fashioned barber shop. Now here's another law of optics for you. The closer you get to your subject, the more the background is going to go out of focus. Now I took this picture right here of my hand just to show you the size of this flower. Now as I get closer and closer to this flower, the background does go out of focus, but only a little bit. It never really goes way out of focus, and that's just a function of the iPhone lens. Trust me. Now, there are applications. People will tell you, well, you can fix that with an app. Okay, there are apps. Now, this is an iPhone photo, and you can see the foreground and the background are out of focus, but you can also see it looks a little artificial. There are apps that will take this picture, taken with an iPhone, and do this for you. But it's really just post-production retouching. What you do is you tell the app what you want to be sharp, you paint it with your finger, and then you make some adjustments so you can turn this picture into that picture. But it's like, this is just like, I mean, who's going to really do this like every time they shoot it? You know, I mean, every once in a while it's handy to know about. But what you really want to do, I think, is keep your life simple. What can you do about this when you're shooting? This is what you want to do. You want to deal with this when you're shooting. So what you want to do is put all of that wonderful, juicy depth of field, that means everything's sharp, that Ansel Adams would have loved, right? Put that all to work for you. You want to take advantage of the sharpness. So last night we're at dinner. I had two cameras with me. I had my big boy Samsung camera, and then I had my iPhone. So let's do a group shot. Okay, Shelly's going to push the button for us, and she did a marvelous job. But I used the iPhone and not my Samsung camera because I wanted everybody to be sharp. Now, admittedly, here's a couple observations. People in the background are getting real small, but people in the background are sharp. If I had taken that with a Samsung camera, people in the foreground would be sharp, and people in the background would be out of focus. So I chose the iPhone. And then not to mention, I didn't have to send anybody a picture because we just like passed the photo around like electronically right there on the spot. Any scene that's got interesting texture like this is a great smartphone subject. Landscapes do pretty darn well with smartphones. And when the boys are sleeping in the morning, both of them are just crazy sharp, which they would not be, and this is a relatively low light situation. They wouldn't be sharp if I had taken this with my other camera. Petals of leaves on a picnic table at the park, It's all sharp. When you really get close to this photograph, you can like fall into the petals. It's all sharp. Even looking down a hallway, it's really nice to see all this stuff at the beach house, my sister-in-law's beach house. Everything's sharp. Now I'm going to show you a picture of Teddy's bare bottom. I'm telling you this right now. Now I want you to know, I would not put this picture on Facebook, but we are among friends, and it is my kid. Okay? So the title of this photograph, the title of this photograph is Always Wear Your Life Jacket. Anyway, Teddy did give me permission for this, I want you to know. Anyway, or something else you can do is find an angle that simplifies the image. Now here, right, a baby of a friend, this is a classic, cluttered background, not much that can be done about it. But if you change your, oh, I'm sorry, there it is. Not that much that can be done about it, but if you switch your angle out, oftentimes, just like changing, and the advantage of having that screen where you can put it into unusual angles and still see the screen without having to get down on your hands and knees or lie down on the ground is fabulous. And when I photograph the neighbor kids, as soon as they do something in front of a very simple background, simple backgrounds are wonderful for smartphones. Or if it's something that's important at a house we rent on Lake Superior, and that house in the background is really significant. The go-kart comes with the house, and these boys just love it. Or you can make the chaos work for you. You can let the mess make a statement. Real life is messy. Think of it as organized clutter. So when you go to the beach, you just have all the stuff work for you, right? As unpleasant as the beach is, I did my very best. I'm not a beach, I'm a deciduous forest guy. So I tried to make the beach look as miserable as possible. Or just what's happening in the kitchen at Thanksgiving. Or what happens at a birthday party with clutter and real life and stuff. Or what happens in the other room at Thanksgiving with the men, with the dog, with the kids, with all the stuff. You can do that with a wide-angle lens, and you can show the whole scene, and you can capture that feeling of being in that room, okay? Now, wide-angle lenses change what's called perspective. So here's a picture of essentially a checkerboard. It's a big playing thing at a playground near our house. But this is what it looks like with a wide-angle lens. That's the smartphone. Here's what it looks like with a normal lens. There's no distortion. It's not being distorted anymore. A normal lens neither magnifies or reduces the image. Here's what it looks like with a telephoto lens. But I just want you to get that this is what a wide-angle lens does. Now in the real world, that looks something like this. Notice how much bigger Teddy's head is than his feet. That's because this picture is taken with a wide-angle lens. Now my wife loves this photograph. She thinks it's really cool. I have used the wide-angle lens to my advantage here. Here also is a smartphone photo. When you have a wide-angle lens, stuff closer to the camera becomes bigger than stuff far away. So that's a smartphone, and here's a regular camera with a medium telephoto lens. Same exact scene, wide-angle lens, telephoto lens, okay? Now, here I am standing across the street, driving around in the small towns in upstate New York. Here's what it looks like with a smartphone. Now, if I had used a telephoto lens, that's what the scene would see. So here it is with the bigger camera. Now, if I wanted to shoot that scene with a smartphone, I would have to walk across the street, and all of a sudden, stuff starts to get distorted. You can all see that, right? All right. Now, that can not be a great thing when you're shooting portraits of people. You probably want to keep people's heads out of corners because they start to get distorted. This is just something I want you to be aware of. I know I'm going on and on here about this wide-angle thing, but I really think it's important if it sinks in. Architecture also, when stuff gets closer to the top of the frame, it starts to get warped. When it gets closer to the bottom of the frame, it starts to get warped. Here's Teddy at breakfast with a smartphone. You can see the wide-angle effect here, and here he is with a digital single-lens reflex medium telephoto lens. And here's the boys' sports stuff in the garage with a wide-angle lens. This one's pretty subtle, but this makes a big difference to me. And here it is with a telephoto lens. Look at what's happening to the shape of the lockers here. See, I love that look right there, and that look right there sort of bothers me. It's not the picture I wanted. Anyway, but a wide-angle lens is not necessarily a bad thing. It can help make for some interesting compositions. So when things point toward the center of the frame, smartphones do really well. Look at these girls playing on these branches and notice how that composition, how I've used the smartphone, the wide-angle lens, to direct the viewer's eyes to the subject with those tree branches. Or here's Alexander at a baseball awards ceremony waiting to receive a trophy. How I use that stuff in the foreground. How it makes things big in the foreground and draws your eyes to the people in the background. Nature, flowers or anything like that does really well with wide-angle lens because you can't really see the distortion. You don't really know what shape flowers or tree branches or roots and berries are, okay? And sometimes you can make that distortion work for you when you're photographing architecture from different angles, or if you want a picture to look wacky. Teddy after he's eaten an Italian water ice. Or just me, your humble presenter. Just if you want, but that's a kooky look of a wide-angle lens close up. Now, there's an attachment that can help you do this. Now, I have mixed feelings about attachments for smartphones because by definition, do you really want another Tinker toy to attach to your camera? But this is what this little telephoto lens does. This is an optical, obviously it's a lens, it clips right onto phones, they make them for all models. Here's what it looks like with the wide-angle lens, and here's what it looks like with the little telephoto attachment. Now I gotta tell you, a month ago they were getting ready to release the new iPhone, and there was a rumor that they were going to put 2 lenses in the iPhone. And I was fantasizing that they're going to finally, there's going to be a wide-angle lens and you'll be able to flick a switch and turn it into a telephoto lens. And that did not happen. But the day that does happen, amateur level cameras, all these digital these mirrorless cameras and all that stuff, that is going to be like the day they died. Because when you have that ability to zoom in optically, beautifully with your smartphone, the days are numbered for all other cameras. Mark my words on that one. So here it is with the wide-angle lens. When you can do this, it changes the world if you're like any kind of a serious amateur photographer at all. Now the zoom on it stinks. You know how you can pinch and zoom? Well, but it certainly can be useful. Now I was in Minneapolis at a Minnesota Twins game with my buddy, the hotel manager. We went to the Twins game. We got down right on the sidelines for batting practice. So I refused to zoom because the picture just falls apart. All it's doing is enlarging the pixels that are already there. Okay, I'm not going to go into the zoom too much. So there's Alex Rodriguez. They were playing the Yankees. That's my picture of Alex Rodriguez. I refuse to zoom in because I don't want to do damage. Here, so I'm standing next to this guy who's completely not a photographer. We own the same exact iPhone. Here's the picture he shot. Right? If you zoom in, you can see that it's starting to fall apart, but his picture is about 1,000 times better than mine, so don't be stupid. Zoom when you need to. There's mine, there's his. My kids like that one a lot better. Okay, now here's the thing. You can actually adjust the exposure, and this is really important. Now, when you've got a picture, there's Teddy at the Kennedy Space Center sitting in the shadows. If I want to change the exposure, I can do it. And here's how you do it. We were having fun with this at dinner last night, and when I was with these 7 photographers last week, I showed them the ins and outs of how to adjust the exposure on iPhones. Not one single one of them knew everything that I told them. So, if you don't track along with this, come see me later and I'll demonstrate it to you. On the Samsung cameras, it's not nearly as friendly or useful as it is on the iPhone. I hate to tell you, but you can still do some things adjusting your exposure. So, here's what it looks like on the iPhone. Now there's like a yellow square and it's got this little sun on an up and down line. Now I made a bigger yellow square just to so you can see it better. But you tap on the screen. Right? You tap on the screen, and wherever you touch the screen, that yellow square is going to move there, right? And that's going to it's going to focus on that spot, and it's going to expose properly for that spot. So if you touch a bright area, like the clouds, the picture gets darker. Now this goes for your Samsung camera. If you want to make the picture lighter, you can tap on a darker area, and the picture is going to get lighter. Now, here's where it gets good with the iPhone. Once you've done that, if you put your finger on the screen, anywhere on the screen, and slide your finger up and down like this, you can adjust the exposure. And when you do that, so imagine this is what your picture looks like. If you slide your finger down on the screen, it'll do this. If you slide your finger up on the screen, it'll do that, okay? You don't have to have it on that little yellow line. You can touch anywhere on the screen you want to, all right? After you take one picture, that square is going to go back to the middle of the frame, or it's going to look for a face. It tries to find faces, okay? Now, if, this is a beautiful thing on an iPhone. I know this is painful for you Samsung people, but if you put your finger on the screen and hold it there for a couple seconds, up comes this thing called auto exposure, autofocus lock, like this, right? Yeah. That comes up. And then that will stay there, and you can then put your finger on and adjust the exposure. Again, just like this, you can adjust the exposure. And then you can take as many pictures as you want, click, click, click. You can recompose your picture. The exposure does not change. It stays focused on your subject. So if you come across a subject with your smartphone that you are even semi-serious about photographing, this is how you would want to do it. You would want to lock your exposure and lock your focus. As soon as you touch the screen again, that spot is going to go back to the middle and you're back to zero. But if you put your finger on it and don't tap, you can slide it up and down and adjust the exposure and take it off, and it won't turn that off. If that all confused you, come see me later. Okay, so let me just do one thing here. Now, your smartphone has this thing called burst. Okay, goes for now. Good news, Samsung users. Your camera will do this. If you hold the shutter button down, it goes. Okay, so you can do this with a smartphone. And that's pretty incredible. Now, my wife didn't believe this was for real. I'm going to put my microphone down here so you can hear. I'm going to play an audio sound for you. This is my camera taking 300 full-sized images. That's 300 pictures, full-sized images. So then what happens is this. When you go through them and look at them, you can pick one, and it will ask you, do you want to, in this case it says, do you want to delete the other 29? If you shoot 300 pictures, you can pick one, and then it says, do you want to delete the other 299? Yes, I do. I only wanted one good one. If you've got kids jumping on a trampoline with your smartphone, you just go, and they're going boing, boing, boing. You're going to get something, trust me. You know, you can delete, you know, here's one of my wife. Do you want to delete the 20 photographs? Yes, we do. We'll just keep one good one. And I'm sure that's how Mary Rather. That's how you do that. That is how you do that. That is how you do that. You don't get lucky. You get smart and use your burst function and knock off a whole bunch of photographs. Okay? Now, smartphone cameras are lousy when things get overexposed. They don't like overexposure. So if you get into adjusting your exposure, what you want to do is bring your exposure down just a little right to the point where the brightest things in the picture have a little bit of detail. That would be ideal. But let me show you this picture I shot coming home from the Phillies game with the boys. And they got that shiny white, you know, baseball pants thing on. So here is that same photograph with the exposure turned way down. You can see there's nothing there. The pants are what we call blown out. They're clipped. That's called clipping. They're blown out. They're overexposed. There's really no retrieving that information. The best thing I've come up with for dealing with something like that is I just convert to black and white. And I think black and white is a completely legitimate, wonderful medium and can certainly solve some of your problems. But they do make, on these cameras, both on the Samsung and the Apple one, they have this thing called HDR. It's high dynamic range. Now what that means is, when you push the button, it shoots two different photographs, a bright photograph and a dark photograph, and it puts them on top of each other and maintains the highlights and the shadows from both of them and makes one good-looking photograph. So here's Teddy. This is what right before school started, home alone, nothing to do, sitting on his favorite post, the mailbox. Notice the sidewalk on the left is overexposed. That's not great. It's not great to have bright, overexposed things, especially at the edge of your frame. It distracts your viewer. So here it is with HDR. That's HDR. And that's just a matter of turning HDR on or off on your camera. And you can have auto HDR. It will shoot HDR for you when you are in a situation that requires it, theoretically. Okay, so that's the difference right there. People say, well, can you shoot in manual exposure with a smartphone? Not really. Here's something for you techno people. You can't change the aperture on a smartphone. Your aperture is f2.2. You can't change it. But you can cheat a little bit, okay? You can cheat a little bit, and there are apps for this. Disappointing, but I'm gonna go through this quickly. Here's a picture I shot a year ago on the 4th of July. That's with my big boy camera on a tripod. So the following year, this is a private party, by the way. Anyway, what could possibly go wrong? Anyway, it's like fireworks blowing up in your face. But anyway, so the following year I went back and I thought to myself, what can I do with a smartphone? This was the very best I could come up with. And that was me using an app called Manual Camera. There's a whole bunch of them out there. It allows you to play with adjustments, but they're fake adjustments. You're not really changing your aperture. And so I'm cutting through this very quickly. That was about as good as I could possibly get for a fireworks shot with a smartphone. You wouldn't, if you really wanted to photograph fireworks, you wouldn't be using a smartphone. You would be using another camera that you can control longer shutter speeds. Okay, here's another one for you. The flash on a smartphone is not a flash. What it is a light bulb that goes on for a very short time. So, the benefit of having a flash on your big boy, big girl camera is that it has a very short flash duration. This is a picture of my hand. I'm doing this with my hand, with my Samsung camera, and I go like this. Click. That's that picture. Let me blow it up for you. A flash has a very, very short duration. Pop. It's like a 4,000th of a second. Freezing action. I can't even move my hand fast enough to make it blurry when I use the flash. It's one of the advantages of a flash. It's why you can freeze action of juggling balls in space, right? This has nothing to do with the shutter speed and everything to do with the duration of the flash. So it's very useful to be able to freeze action with a flash. Now, here's a photograph of my smartphone flash with the same hand going like this. It's a light bulb that comes on like this long, which is a very, very long time, and stuff's blurred. I'm just telling you because people have said to me, my pictures with the flash aren't sharp. You still have to hold still with a smartphone camera when you use your flash in a way you don't have to with other cameras, okay? But through all of this, the rules of photography are all the same for smartphone cameras, and for me, it's all about the light. If you want to shoot beautiful smartphone photographs of people you love, find places with beautiful light and simple backgrounds and go to town. It's all the same. It doesn't matter what camera you're using. So this is my little neighbor across the alley who, I'm surrounded by cute kids. It's actually really nauseating. But no, I'm kidding. And I even brought Teddy along to be an assistant. You could use a little reflector. Yep, look at her is right. Everybody gets paid on the Nick Kelsh shoots. $1. You want cooperation from a kid? $1. They will stand in line. Who wants to make $1? Okay, now, I'm going to just there are little lighting accoutrements you can buy for smartphones. Now this is more doodads and gizmos and attachments, and I have mixed feelings, like I said. But this is a really nice photograph of Alexander. The light is really beautiful on his face. Now this is a little toy that was like 60 bucks, comes with an app, goes on the phone, it lights up when you push the button. It's a little light, it's like the size of a credit card, right? So I tape this thing to my ever-trusty milk carton, which is a wonderful diffusion device. There it is. So there's Alexander holding the light source for me, holding the light, and there's the picture of Alexander. Pretty nice. Now you don't have to have a milk carton. You could use a lamp. I'm just telling you, there's ways. I'm trying to drive home. It's all about the lighting. It is all about the lighting. Okay, was there a question?
Yeah, did he get $2 since he had to hold the light?
No, yeah, $1. I would never. That's way over the top, $2. That would be a very bad precedent. So here's Teddy. Now, notice the interesting catch lights that are in Teddy's eyes. Look at that eye. I mean, that's a close-up. That's a smartphone photo. But look at those little catch lights that really make this photograph dramatic. So picture in your mind what the lighting situation is. And before I show you, I want to show you a photograph that I did for my book, Naked Babies, like a long time ago. This photograph is set up in a studio with an assistant and big lighting boxes and blah, blah, blah. Here's how I shot the picture of Teddy. These are two battery-operated little fluorescent bulbs from Home Depot. And Teddy's holding them for me. It's the same lighting effect. It's all about the lighting. That picture on the bottom right there was actually one of the most popular pictures in the book. And it's really all about the lighting and those catch lights in the eyes. So then I started looking around. I see this effect everywhere. Let me zoom in on Donald Trump's. It's the same situation. I don't think they did it with two $10 fluorescent bulbs from Home Depot, but it's the same thing, right? So my son Teddy says, you can deal with it, Mr. Trump. Okay, this is I'm telling you, getting a light source your subject can hold for you is a nice way to go. It is a nice way to go. Okay, it is all about the lighting. Everything around you, when things are in interesting light, it's going to make for good photographs, I promise you. Here's a picture of me by a window. Unfortunately, it was about 45 minutes worth of retouching on that photograph. I thought it would be a little easier than going to the dermatologist anyway. But an early morning walk with Teddy at the beach, Alexander watching television, a friend of ours in a barn. It's all smartphone stuff. That's what that little attachment, this one. There's Teddy. You know, whenever there's nice light, there are nice photographs, believe me, at the beach. So here's the thing. Here are my little simple basic rules for the smartphone. Keep your pictures really simple. But the fact is, that goes for any camera, doesn't it? Look for beautiful light. And, well, let's face it, that goes for pretty much any camera. Don't overexpose your highlights. Smartphones really hate it, but the fact is, all cameras hate that. They don't like to have overexposed highlights. Be kind with your camera. I don't think there's a camera in the world that you could be kinder and nicer to people with than your smartphone. You just always have it. You can always do something nice with your phone. That goes for any camera, but really goes for smartphones. I want you to have fun while you're at it. Have as much fun with that. It is such a fun camera. It's a fun camera. The guy who's like, why would anybody, he must be 60 years old, why would, it's because it's fun. It is because it's fun and it's inspiring. You will inspire yourself. But that pretty much goes for any camera, doesn't it? It does. It really does. Say I love you with your camera. I mean, you can do that with your neighbors, your friends, photograph your neighbors' pets, surprise them, thank people after dinner parties with pictures of the table set up, photograph their flowers, their entrees, their salad dressing, take a picture of the chef in the kitchen. It goes on and on and on. And that really goes for any camera. There's no getting around it. I just want you to say I love you with a camera. That goes for any camera. That is my message for you. Thank you. And on that note, while we're all feeling so touchy-feely, I just want to say If you, this is the lowest price we've ever had on our courses. It's 40% off. We have a special Forever Live code. There's the, I'm going to just leave that up on the screen for a few minutes. If I come see me if you want to sign up for it. Talk to me. We have classes starting. There's the information there will take you. Thank you to my wife for producing that slide this morning. Thank you, Ann. And thank you so much. You people are so nice to me. I have had so many comments about my kids, and I know you get tired of seeing my kids, and I just appreciate the warm family feeling here. So thank you so much.